This incident happened on a Saturday night about 3 months ago. My boyfriend Caleb and I had the rare chance to be completely alone for the weekend. His parents had taken a trip up to Georgia to visit his grandmother, and since they trusted him not to burn the house down, we figured we'd make the most of it. I packed an overnight bag, grabbed some takeout on the way, and drove over to his house in Tampa. Caleb's neighborhood isn't anything special. Quiet, residential, rows of single-story homes with big front yards, and almost no street lights. At night, it can feel a little eerie, like the whole block is just holding its breath. Still, we were excited to spend the weekend without having to sneak around or tiptoe in the hallway. We ate dinner, watched some dumb comedy on Netflix, and eventually headed to his room around 11. Caleb's room is in the back of the house and has a big window that faces the woods behind their property. There are no fences, just a tree line so thick it looks like the edge of a different world. At night, it's pitch black. You can't see a thing past the glass. By midnight, we were both ready to crash. He has a full-sized bed that's just big enough for the two of us if we don't mind being close, which we didn't. I don't remember falling asleep, but I do remember the dream. Actually, calling it a dream doesn't even feel accurate. It was more like slipping into another reality, one that looked identical to ours, but felt subtly wrong. In the dream, I woke up to a loud slam, like a door being shut hard, somewhere in the house. Before I could even sit up, I heard footsteps racing down the hallway. Not just walking, sprinting. Instinctively, I started to get out of bed, but something held me back. Everything in Caleb's room looked exactly as it had when we went to sleep, down to the phone charger still plugged in by the nightstand and his hoodie tossed on the floor. But the door had a thin sliver of yellow light glowing from underneath it. It didn't make sense. We'd turned off every single light before bed. Yet there it was, a perfect golden strip cutting through the darkness. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. I was frozen. Not with fear, exactly, but with this strange, sinking feeling, like something ancient and cruel was on the other side. Then came the voices. It started with one, female, calm but mocking. She began whispering the kind of insults that cut deep, things about me that no one should know. Childhood regrets, embarrassing secrets, things I hadn't told Caleb or anyone. Her voice was soon joined by others, men, women, old, young, and they all knew me. Every dark moment I'd buried, every shame I thought I'd left behind, they pulled out and threw in my face like a court of faceless judges. My heart pounded. I wanted to scream or cry, but I couldn't move. The voices built to a crescendo, each word more cruel and personal than the last. Then, darkness. Every light in the house went out. The glowing strip under the door vanished. The voices stopped. And the cold hit me. It was instant and brutal, like the air had been vacuumed out and replaced with pure ice. I couldn't breathe. It felt like I wasn't in Caleb's room anymore, like the door had opened, not into a hallway, but into something else entirely. I backed away blindly, stumbled into bed, and dove under the covers. Then I woke up, at least I thought I did. I sat up, dazed, sweaty, and out of breath. I looked around. Caleb was asleep beside me. Everything was normal, except the door. That same strip of yellow light was glowing under it again. Then the sound returned. The downstairs door slammed. Footsteps charged down the hallway. The entire scene repeated itself, beat for beat, like I was trapped in a loop. This time, I stayed put. I didn't run to the door. I just stared at the light, praying it would disappear. And then I woke up again, this time for real. I could tell immediately. My heart was still pounding, but the air felt right. Caleb was still asleep, snoring lightly. I lay there for a few seconds, trying to ground myself, when I noticed it. The door. The strip of yellow light, still there. For a moment I panicked, thinking I'd slipped into another layer of the dream. But then I heard it. Real, distinct footsteps, moving across the tile floor in the kitchen. Then the quiet click of something metallic. Someone was in the house. I didn't think, I just acted. I grabbed Caleb's arm and shook him awake, whispering harshly, "Someone's here. Wake up." He was groggy but alert enough to take me seriously. I handed him his phone and mouthed, "Call 911. He nodded, doing it quietly as I crept toward the door to check the lock. It was still locked, but I could hear someone just beyond it, breathing. We stayed quiet, frozen, until we heard the sound of police sirens outside. A few seconds later, the front door burst open. There was shouting, and then silence. Caleb and I waited until we heard one of the officers yell, "It's clear!" When we finally came out, we found two men, both in black hoodies and ski masks, being loaded into the back of a patrol car. Apparently, they'd come in through the back sliding door, which they'd unlocked earlier in the day. The cops said they'd been casing the neighborhood for weeks. They'd chosen Caleb's house because his mom had posted on Instagram about their trip to Georgia. I should have been terrified by the break-in, but the thing that stuck with me most was the dream. It wasn't just some vague nightmare. It had replayed the actual break-in in almost perfect detail before it happened. Down to the voices, the footsteps, the door. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the sounds of the intruders triggered the dream somehow. Maybe my subconscious picked up on noises and wove them into a nightmare. But even that doesn't explain the light. That strip of yellow light haunts me. I see it when I close my eyes. I see it in my mind during the day. I'll be walking to class or brushing my teeth, and it's just there, in the background, perfectly horizontal, perfectly glowing. I've tried to forget about it, to write it off as a trick of the brain. But the more I try to ignore it, the more it lingers, like it's waiting, like something is still standing on the other side of the door. Before we dive into the next story, if you're here for the first time, please consider subscribing to our channel and clicking the bell icon so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. Your support truly encourages us and helps this channel continue to grow. And don't forget to share these stories with your friends and family. Thank you. I've always had vivid dreams, but never the kind that linger in your bones days after waking. Not until last fall, when I started having that one dream over and over again. It began like any normal night. In the dream, I'd be asleep in my bedroom. Everything was dark, but not pitch black. I could still make out the faint outline of my dresser, the ceiling fan, the curtains by the window swaying slightly, as if someone had cracked the glass. Then, there would be a sound. A low creak, like a floorboard shifting beneath weight. I'd hold my breath, trying not to move, but the air would change, like something was in the room with me. I'd feel the distinct sensation of being watched. And then I'd see him. A figure, tall and motionless, stood right at the edge of my bed. I couldn't see his face, only a shadow, but I knew he was staring at me. Sometimes he'd bend forward. Sometimes he'd whisper something I couldn't understand. And always, right before I could scream or run, I'd wake up, heart racing, drenched in sweat. At first I brushed it off. Bad dreams, maybe stress from work. I was a 31-year-old freelance editor living in Fairmont, Missouri, a quiet town with more dogs than people. I worked from home, didn't really socialize much outside of occasional phone calls with my sister. I liked the quiet. But the dream didn't stop. It got worse, more detailed. I began to recognize the pattern. He always entered the room the same way, the same step, the same pause near the closet, the same silence before he leaned in. It felt rehearsed, like a ritual. And then things started happening outside the dream. One morning, I noticed the curtain in my bedroom window was slightly ajar. I always made sure to close them fully at night, but maybe I missed it, I told myself. The next night, I woke up to the distinct sound of tapping. Not in the dream, but real tapping against my window. I froze in bed, my heart thudding so hard I was sure whoever was out there could hear it. I wanted to check, to rush to the window, and prove to myself it was just a tree branch or a raccoon. But I couldn't move. My limbs felt like they were filled with sand. I just lay there until the sun rose. The next day, I installed a motion light outside my window, but nothing changed. The dream kept returning, clearer every time. One night, I was wide awake reading when I thought I saw movement by the window from the corner of my eye. I snapped my head, but there was nothing. Just the empty night. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I finally confided in my sister, Amy, during a call. "You need to talk to someone," she said gently. "Maybe it's anxiety or sleep paralysis. I can find someone near you." I didn't disagree. It made sense, but deep down, something felt off. It didn't feel like my mind playing tricks. It felt like something real, just out of reach. A week later, I had the worst dream yet. In it, the man didn't just stand by the bed. He climbed onto it. He was crawling slowly, his hands pressed into the mattress as he inched closer. I could feel the dip of the bed beneath his weight, smell the faint metallic scent of sweat or blood. And then he whispered something. But this time, I understood it. "I've been waiting." I screamed myself awake. My throat was hoarse, my heart racing out of control. I turned on every light in the house, checked every door and window. Everything was locked. Nothing had been broken. But the dread didn't leave. I barely slept the next few nights. Then came Friday. It was unusually cold that evening. I closed the curtains tight, double-checked the locks, and went to bed early, determined not to let the fear control me. I left a small nightlight on in the hallway, just for comfort. At some point during the night, I woke up suddenly. Only this time, it wasn't from a dream. I was sure I'd heard something, a soft thud, like the door between the kitchen and hallway clicking shut. I sat up, straining to hear. The house was still. Too still. I grabbed my phone and flicked on the flashlight. My bedroom door was slightly open. I never left it open at night. My pulse spiked. I stepped out into the hallway, heart in my throat. The kitchen light was off, but the curtain above the sink, the one I had closed, was slightly lifted, as if someone had just peeked through. Then I saw it. The basement door. It was open. I didn't go into the basement often, just storage and utilities. But I knew I had locked that door. I always did. The air was heavy. My flashlight flickered for a second, and I swear I heard breathing. Slow, deliberate, from down in the dark. I didn't wait. I ran back into the bedroom, locked the door, shoved a chair under the knob, and called 911. The dispatcher was calm but alarmed. "Stay on the line with me," she said. The police arrived in less than 10 minutes. They found a man hiding in the crawl space beneath the basement stairs. He had broken in through the back cellar door. The lock was rusted and weak. They said he'd likely been watching me for weeks, possibly even longer. They found old food wrappers, a blanket, and even notes, detailed accounts of my daily habits. He had been living in my house. They wouldn't tell me everything, but one officer said quietly as I sat wrapped in a blanket on my porch, "You're lucky. Most people don't wake up before it's too late." I moved out the next week. Amy flew in and helped me find a rental across town while the old place was put up for sale. I had new locks, a security system, and neighbors who checked in on me. But I couldn't sleep. Not for a long time. Because here's what keeps me up at night. The dream didn't warn me about the man. The dream matched what was happening. The way he stood, the way he whispered, even the creak of the closet. It was all exactly the same, like my subconscious had been experiencing it before I consciously knew. I don't know what to call it. Premonition? Intuition? Maybe something more primal. The brain picking up on sounds, movements, energies we're too distracted to notice when awake. But I'll never forget the last thing he whispered in the dream before I woke up that final time. "I've been waiting." And he had.